Hey there, welcome to the Posit Data Science Hangout. I'm Libby Heron, and this is a recording of our weekly community call that happens every Thursday at 12 p.m. US Eastern Time. If you are not joining us live, you miss out on the amazing chat that's going on. So find the link in the description where you can add our call to your calendar and come hang out with the most supportive, friendly, and funny data community you'll ever experience. Can't wait to see you there. I would love to introduce our featured leader today. We have Adrian Perez, Head of People Analytics at GitLab. I'm so excited for you all to meet him. Adrian, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do and something you'd like to do for fun.
Sure. Hi everybody. Pleased to meet everybody, and I've been to probably a couple of these hangouts. So I think they're a really cool way to create community, and I always just kind of love the conversation. So I'm really excited to be here today. Um, like she said, my name is Adrian Perez. I currently work in people analytics, and I've been doing that for about 10 years. And I'll explain what people analytics is in just a bit. But my background, for those who don't know, but my background is in statistics. I did an undergraduate degree in math, did a master's degree in statistics, and initial goal was I really wanted to be a teacher. I really wanted to work in the college setting and be a professor. And I even wanted to be a high school teacher, high school math teacher for a while, and realized teaching wasn't probably for me. I think you have to have a certain level of patience and be ready for it mentally to teach. It wasn't for me, and I started going to find whatever business problems I could solve using data. I started working as a consultant for a while. I've worked in market research. I've done marketing analytics, and I worked for a couple financial institutions before I started working at HEB. And for those of you who don't know HEB, it's a local regional grocer here in San Antonio or in Texas. They're headquartered in San Antonio, and I started the people analytics function here, or at HEB. I was hired as just an analyst, and I quickly realized there's a lot of cool things you can do with people analytics. What people analytics is really data analytics, business analytics in the HR space. It's everything from, building data models and structures to also building out dashboards and doing advanced analytics, helping with experimentation. And one of the cool things I get to work on, I've learned a lot in this job, is also like survey design and then survey analysis of the items that you have and how do you leverage statistical techniques to make sense of that and create these like latent constructs. It can get very nerdy, and it's also very, very useful for the business. So I built out a team there, and then I made a shift over to the tech world. Now I'm at GitLab, and I was charged here with kind of the same thing. We're a growing company. We didn't have any people analytics function, so I got hired on, and I work with one other person on my team, but we also are a hub and spoke model here. And for those that may not really fully get what that means, we have a central enterprise data team that manages all of our tools, all of our data warehousing, access controls, roles within Snowflake. We use Snowflake. And then I lead what's called a functional team. So we have like product analytics, we have marketing analytics, we have sales, we have engineering, we have people, and I lead the people analytics function, and kind of become what we call DRI, directly responsible individual for all things people data related. I'm kind of that conduit between the analytics side of things, folks that want to do all the technical things, make sure it's set up and organized, and then the business and the HR side where they're trying to ask questions of the data. They have certain needs and uses for it, and then I kind of help me and my direct report help kind of bridge that for everybody.
Awesome. You mentioned direct report. Do you have a enormous team? Are you guys
No,
small and mighty? What does that look
no.
like?
So, I think one of the struggles in a lot of analytics roles, in my experience, um, they're directly related to in some way, like the front end revenue side of the business, right? So sales analytics directly related to that. Marketing analytics directly related to that. Product, if people aren't, we don't understand how folks are using our product and how to optimize it, we're not making more money. When you're in people analytics, you are not making any money, right? You're not providing any money for them, maybe insights and helping them do the business, but you're on the administrative side. You're strictly a cost center, fighting for headcount, and anybody else who might work in one of those kind of expense departments or divisions probably understand the struggle of getting headcount in those positions is very difficult. So I was actually the expectation was we were growing really fast. We wanted to build out this team really big. I hired a fantastic direct report, and if any of you find him on LinkedIn, his name's Shane McCormick. He is phenomenal with building data models and data structures and translating user requirements into dashboards that are very useful and helpful. And we just kind of hit the ground running, took off, and the headcount slowed and stopped. So it's just been the two of us as the company's growing for the past, 4 years or so. So that, we're getting it done. We're working out and we make do with what we got. And like I said, working with the functional analytics, I mean, sorry, the central analytics team, we can really kind of expand our reach and we know how to leverage what they do well and then pull back on that even though we could maybe do it. Like I don't have to do everything. He doesn't have to do everything. We offload and delegate as best we can, and that makes us a little more impactful. But fortunately, just one. And every time I meet with a couple other people on analytics groups, we're probably the smallest group out of like almost any company I meet with, except for those that really are kind of dabbling in it and have like one or no or nobody, and someone's doing it as a
Right.
side
Yeah.
project.
Or, their analytics team or data science team is just sort of like doing some people analytics stuff. Maybe there's not like a dedicated people analytics team
Right.
or function on its own yet. But this leads into a fantastic question that I just saw in Slido. Y'all, you can ask questions in Slido. Isabella and Rachel are pasting the link in there to Slido. The anonymous question is there a minimum company size before people analytics becomes worthwhile? If so, how large would you estimate a company needs to be before people analytics becomes really worthwhile? That's a fantastic question. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's one I struggle with too. I think it just depends on your comfort with data and the drive for it, right? Um, I would say to have like a proper people analytics function with at least a couple of headcount, you need to probably have a few hundred people. There's lots of different things that you can look at, but part of people analytics is the talent acquisition side. And whether you have a company of 10 or you have a company of 10,000, like you're getting a lot of applications and there's a lot of things to look through there. And that part of the business typically ebbs and flows. They're kind of like the sales end of HR is what I always described it. So if you're doing a lot of hiring, that group expands. There's a lot of recruiters, a lot of coordinators, a lot of input, a lot of jobs posting. If you slow, then that group kind of contracts a little bit. But the applications tend to stick up. They just kind of go with scale, right? They have to figure out how they're going to scale. So I read an article when I first started, and there was somebody who was at a small company. I think they had like 50 people. She was the only HR person, and she was doing HR analytics, people analytics at her company in spreadsheets, right? Like you don't have to do anything fancy with Tableau or Power BI or using Shiny and building dashboards. It could be as simple as just a few reports, maybe like an R that you're building out in an automated fashion, getting your reports exported once a week, and then having a process in Excel where you're leveraging the data and putting insights together for leaders, and then you can focus on like the experimental side, right? That's something that I think is really impactful on the talent acquisition side of, hey, well, we're trying to recruit this certain way. What if we do an intervention and try to recruit this separate way for a group, for a randomized controlled experiment? And then we can start to see how that intervention is working, right? Like there's small tests, but there's tons of room to experiment and do that, particularly when you're small. So I'd say there's probably no real like size that says, oh, you can do it. If you have data, like analyze it, right? And there's tons of HR data that's out there. As you grow and scale, you have more sophisticated data, you have more complex systems you can work with. But I would say probably having a true functional like group, maybe like 200 to 300 people is probably where you're fine to go ahead and have like at least an individual who's responsible for this because HR leaders, not just HR leaders, but business leaders need HR data, like headcount data. They want to understand their turnover. They want to understand how many promotions did we do, how much are we giving out in bonuses. All that stuff needs to be analyzed by somebody.
Awesome. Well, we have had so many amazing questions just like pour into the Slido.
Oh,
Let's
cool.
hop to the next one. There is a highly upvoted question that I would also love to know. Can you share some specific types of analysis or modeling tasks that are done in people analytics? And this really ties in with another anonymous question. So let's put them together, which is like, what are the top 3 to 5 questions the business generally wants answered from people analytics? I think those are generally the same question.
Yeah, so a general question that I get a lot is, we want to know if this thing worked, whatever that thing is, right? Put in X.
Whatever we did.
Yeah, and unfortunately for that question, and anybody else has been asked that question, when you're asked after the fact, it's very, very hard to tell them what worked and didn't, right? Like getting that into the business's mind of like, I have to be brought in sooner in the process to be able to help you design and organize and structure the data is critical. That's a very common question of, well, then what can we do to show its impact? And then we kind of work around that. Another one that's a top question is like they want to understand the inflow and outflow of their headcount. How many people have we hired? How many people have we lost? How many people have we promoted? Like those things. So it's kind of like a cyclical thing you're looking at, and retention rates is a big part of that. So, with that comes things like just making sure you're defining it properly and documenting it somewhere. So folks aren't going out there on their rogue ways of creating their own. Well, we wouldn't want to include that group because, of course, they're going to leave. So we're going to exclude that group and then have a retention number. We have to really be forceful in some way to say these are the metrics that we're going to use, and this is how we define it. This is how we're going to measure it. And there's no real adjusting of that based on nuance, right? Like you have to kind of work
Hmm.
within that definition. And so those are the other one is a lot of reporting asks. Everybody wants reporting, and that's just the nature of I think business analytics is everybody wants to be able to make up their own mind and not be told what they should focus on. They want to look at a report. It should shine out to them. This is what I need to look at, and this is what I need to investigate next. And the truth of the matter is, like that only goes so far. Like reporting can only give you so much, even if they're savvy enough to ask questions of the data. I think you need to provide analytics, but jumping with the analytics first is not always really accepted in my experience by leaders because they want to make those conclusions on their own. But I think they're the subject matter experts, right? So there should be some leverage to let them kind of dig a little bit deeper. But dashboards is definitely like the next thing. So that might be a disappointing answer in the sense that there's no real like heavy modeling and analysis answers. I mean, questions that I get, but there are opportunities. So, something I often mention, it was a really fun one to do, and I didn't actually get to do it, but I was leading a statistician on my team who went through it. We at HEB had a method for recruiting, and when you would apply to a store, you literally applied to that store. The store admin would look at your application, bring in people, interview them, say, "It sounds great. Can you come in tomorrow and meet with my store leader at this time?" Sure, come in, meet. You can imagine it's kind of a long process, right? And you're getting somebody who's maybe a high school student who's going to be checking at the cashier or bagging groceries for, maybe like 5, 6 hours a week. So they would go through a lot of this, and there's a lot of time in that. And the recruiting team had always wanted to take that and centralize it. Let us handle all those applications. We can have them apply to like several stores at one time, and we can move them where we need to. And it would streamline the process. And there was a lot of resistance. But when the pandemic happened, they were like, do it. It was just too much stuff going on with running stores, with trying to make sure in managing inventory. Hiring folks was just going to take too much time. And what they wanted to do was understand the impact. It was about 6 months later, everybody was kind of saying, hey, maybe we should go back to the way things were. We want to see if we're hiring better quality folks or not. We didn't really have a measure for quality of hire, like is this person performing well or not, but we did want to look at retention. Like how long are we keeping them? Because those are very high turnover roles. So we ran a survival analysis and we kind of pinned the same time the previous year when we were running the old process to when we flipped. We looked at how many people survived like, 3 months into the role before they left and they left the company, not even left to another role. And what we saw was, looking at these two groups, this new method actually provided just as good, if not better, quality candidates. There was a more streamlined process, allowed for us to hire folks quicker as well, and it gave a whole ton more time back to the stores. And this was used by our director of recruiting for all the store leaders to look at in a presentation she gave out. And they immediately said, "Okay, great, we surrender. Like you go ahead and do this from now on. Let's figure out a
We
a
surrender.
better." Yeah, pretty much. Because when you run a store, specifically, it's something like HEB, but I think most stores, like retail, you have like complete control over the store. You can make
Right,
decisions of whatever you need to do. So it's hard when you have that environment to have them change the way they've always done things,
right.
and relinquish control. And they did. So it was like a huge success. It wasn't the most complicated analysis, but the person I was leading had never done a survival analysis before. She had to kind of go learn
Right.
it. She ran some regressions in there, was able to provide a compelling argument, and then we changed the course of the business, really, which I think for the better, to be honest. It was
That's
kind of
amazing.
cool.
Well, that's a good example. Survival analysis is an example of a modeling technique inside of people analytics. And for anybody wondering about scale at HEB, how many stores were at HEB when you were there?
Over 300.
Yeah,
And now I
it's a
think they're
lot.
probably approaching close to like 350 or something like that. So they have a lot of stores. We had 100, when I was there, 120,000 employees. I think they're probably closer to
Yeah.
like 130, 140. And there was four of us on the people analytics team. So we were doing the best we could with what we had.
Whew. That kind of gave me heart palpitations to hear you say 120K employees,
Yeah.
maybe 130K employees, four of us. All right, well, we have so many questions in Slido, so we've got to hop over and get through some because, oh my gosh, we're not going to get to them all, but they're amazing. So, John, you had asked a question and you do have like, hey, please read this for me because you don't have your microphone. John, I haven't seen you in so long. So good to just even read your name on a screen. I hope you're great. John's question is, how do you manage HR professionals when they don't like the results that the data showed them? And relatedly, do you see HR in general becoming more or less interested in data analytics?
Um, so to answer the second question first, I'd say that they're getting more interested. Folks, I think, are realizing the need. And people analytics, when I first started, was this obscure, oh, it's kind of neat and nice to have. Sure, it says it can do all these things, but can it really? There was a lot of skepticism. I think
Yeah.
folks now are just kind of accepting it. There's a lot more companies with people analytics functions out there. They've found value in it, even in some small way in previous organizations. So when I have new like VPs or directors that join in the HR space here, I'm like one of the first people they reach out to within like that first week or two for a chat to find out like, hey, where are we in the state of people analytics, which is really cool. It's really exciting. And as far as if you tell them something they don't want to hear, it's the same as any other business leader. I mean, I used to work in marketing and we were doing consulting. And the way this would work is somebody who was in charge of a specific type of marketing campaign or a marketing method was in charge of working with the consultants, and they'd come to say, "Hey, we're trying to build a mixed model. We want to understand which techniques work best for whatever target we're doing." And when we'd run the model, there would be a marketing campaign that we would say, "Oh yeah, that doesn't do anything. It adds nothing." And inevitably, it would always be, "Well, I'm responsible for that. You can't take that out of the model. That has to be in the model, right?" So whether it added nothing or even hurt our ability to predict, they wanted it in the models, right? And that was just the nature of the business. We couldn't we couldn't take it out. So we have to make a call out. We have to say this is, not significant. We're keeping it in there though because there's still inherent value in doing this and so forth. And that's just kind of the same I've dealt with any business leader I've worked with. Is if there's something they're really passionate about and they believe and they know to be true, you kind of have to really pay attention to what it is they're looking at and help them understand the full story of it. Like I'm not one to say, well, what do you need me to show you? And then show it. Like that is never gonna jive with me. But I've also learned not to give like hard pushback and say, no, you're wrong. Like do it this way. I'm smarter than you, and this is telling us whatever. Like that goes nowhere either, right? You discredit yourself completely. So understanding where they're coming from, why they want, and then trying to find some solution. Usually they come to you with, hey, I have this data, I want to answer it. I want this to answer this question, or we're trying to do this thing. I think it's going to help us understand if it's working or not. And you can say, well, this isn't telling me that. That doesn't mean you're wrong. I'm sure you're seeing some value. Like, where do you think you're seeing the value? What other data could we potentially tap into? What other methods could we try to measure going forward? Right. So I don't try to get back into. I try to stay away from. No, the path you're going is wrong. Do this instead because really I'm a consultant in this. They're going to come to me if they need me, and if they didn't want to, they just wouldn't come to me, right?
Right.
Sometimes folks are coming to you because they're being told by their leader, like, no, go talk with the data team and have this verified a little bit. And in that regard, you have maybe a little more leverage. But oftentimes they're coming to you to see, like, hey, is there anything else I can learn? And that's my job is to help them learn more, not to tell them you're wrong, this worked, it didn't work. Sometimes you have to, right? Especially if you've been with them from the beginning on the design of some intervention, but by and large, it's a delicate thing that you have to just kind of make sure you realize they see you as a partner, not
Yeah.
as an
It's a
obstacle.
relationship.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're not there to build walls, you're there to break them down
Hmm.
and teach and learn together. Wonderful. All right, John, thank you so much for that. Fantastic question. We have a question from Frank Kovacs. If you are available to ask that live, I would love it. Hey, Frank.
Yes, yes, I am. First of all, Happy New Year, everyone. It feels good to be back. We're finally here. My question is, so I recently restarted a job search within the past couple weeks. So my question is a bit more targeted here. You mentioned in the beginning HR, hiring, things like that. Does that include implementing third-party applicant tracking systems, keyword analysis, and how much of that work is done on the front end before they actually enter the company as employees?
When you mean on the front end before they enter, what do you mean by that? From whose perspective?
From the applicant's perspective before they're hired when they're still just applicants.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So when I don't do anything with like the actual. Like I'm not building any kind of AI tools or leveraging other tools that are helping sourcers or recruiters skim through resumes and then find and match skills or anything of that sort. What I'm helping with mostly on the on the recruiting side is operations, right? How many
Mhm.
people did you have apply to this role? How many of them went through to the next stage? How long did it take them to go from that stage? We're trying to understand scheduling. How long did it take to schedule? After we had the offer verbal, how long did it take you to get a written offer to them? Things like that. Especially in something like tech, you work in a very competitive space. Somebody, if they're interviewing with you, they're typically interviewing with several other people. And
Yeah.
so you want to make that process go quick, and delays can actually impact the quality of candidates you're getting in, how fast you're getting them in, and all this work you're putting towards it. So those are the things that I'm helping measure a lot. On the other side, we'll also help them measure like their campaigns, right? So they go and they will target certain groups like universities, and for certain type of roles, they may go and target
Mhm.
specific like user groups or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
And we help them try to understand like what's the effectiveness of those things or things like referrals. So I'm looking at a lot of metadata to help them
Yeah.
understand like where can you narrow your search? Because it's just like sales.
Mhm.
In sales, like
Yeah.
you're gonna say, well, who are the highest valued prospects that you want to go after? I can't tell you what to look for, how to win those people. That's kind of your job. But recruiters might have their own tools at their disposal. I'm sorry to say, I need to do a keyword search for these like 5 phrases. Give me all the applicants that or all the resumes that I have currently in my system that do this and so forth. But if I don't help them streamline the other processes and then
Mhm.
narrow their focus, they can't do that as well. So that's where I think there's a lot of benefit to folks like the candidates when you have a company that does this and works really well with their talent acquisition group from a people analytics side. I don't know if
I
that
love
answers
Gotcha.
your
it.
question entirely. If you have any
It
additional,
did. Thank you. One of the big skills I had to learn was ATS, optimizing for keywords, even if it's dense. So, and it does fit with the job postings as campaigns. You see the ones that are promoted. You see the ones good fit for you and your network. So it
yeah,
absolutely did answer the question. Thank you.
yeah.
Awesome. Thank
And
you,
one thing
Frank.
I'll
Yeah.
say I've
Oh,
learned,
go ahead.
Frank, really quick on that when it comes to interviewing, like keywords, all that helps. Finding somebody that you connect with, like within the same domain and reaching out is always going to be better than anything. But then
Oh
that
yeah.
seems
Oh
real
yeah.
like that's so hard to do. Like it's like it's like cold calling somebody sometimes, but if you know them, it's even easier, right? But that's always just like there's so much volume. There's just so much volume of applicants
Yeah.
all the time for these roles.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah.
with enough just persistence, you can get through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, like the Data Science Hangout and other communities like this are a really great place to go, and joining coalitions, associations, professional societies are a really great way to make data friends and have those connections already kind of built into your everyday life. It's really a good thing to invest in. Not to be a shill for the hangout. You're already here, but I just love it so much. Making data friends has been such a wonderful part of my life. Um, I really like the idea of a job posting as a marketing campaign. Rachel, I saw Rachel in the chat like, whoa, I had not thought of it that way. Neither had I. It's absolutely a marketing campaign. And when I think about it in that light, it makes me think, wow, some people are not doing it well at all. All right, Frank, thank you so much for that great question. I wanted to pull Joey in. Joey, would you like to ask your question live?
Sure. Yeah, thanks.
Hey.
Thanks, Libby, and thanks, Adrian, for hanging out with us. You mentioned you hired and manage a direct report, and you're also in people analytics, so I think you'd be the ideal person to ask for management advice.
Uh,
Um, I'm about to be a first-time manager of a small team in data science. I'm really freaking out. So,
Congratulations, Joey.
thank you. So, any advice you're willing to share, both from your own experience hiring and managing, but also from your subject matter expertise in people analytics, like you kind of know empirically what makes people love their jobs and stay in them. So, books you'd recommend, stuff you've learned, anything you're willing to share. Thanks.
yeah, no, well, I guess there's like well, first, congratulations, because that's a big step, especially if you've been an individual contributor. And then it doesn't sound like you're taking on like one person. You're like I've always been able to build my teams like one at a time and then grow. So taking on a big group is kind of it's got to be a little bit daunting in your mind, right? So there's like, I guess, two things that I think about when I think about leading somebody. And of course, this is just me. Like, I haven't read any books. I've looked at a few like project management books, which help a lot. But that's the one piece, right? There's the business that you have to manage, right? And everybody's got their work they're doing. They've got it organized and structured. And that's probably going to be a little bit of the easier piece. If you do it well yourself, right? And I would imagine if you're going into this role, you've probably done it pretty well, manage your own work, collaborating with others, like lean on that. But the other piece of it for me has always, because you're right, like looking at the data, if you want to retain strong employees, they have to have a good, strong relationship with their manager. Like that phrase, you quit your manager, not your job, is not a phrase because it's not true, right? Like that is real. And when people are not feeling appreciated, when they're not feeling managed properly, when not feeling heard, they're going to look elsewhere where they can get that, particularly if they're strong, right? The thing I've always followed, and not know if it's the best or not, is I've reached out to the old leaders that I had that I know were great, and I've asked them like their advice. Like I'm kind of struggling with this thing. What would you do? Right? Like I think you already being a little nervous about it is like a good sign of humility. And I've always appreciated managers who are humble and can say, I don't get that. I don't know that. And don't come in and just kind of authoritatively tell me, well, you should do this. Like whether they know it or not, it's just what they think. It's like we're partners in this, right? So I treat everybody that works for me as like a partner. I mean, I hire people who are always going to be doing things I can't do. And that's just like why I'm hiring them, right? Why would anybody hire anybody? I'm not going to hire people to do the things I already know how to do. I'm paying somebody to do something that I can't do, or maybe if I could, I just don't have the time. So I'm there to guide them, not even necessarily in the technical aspect all the time, to guide them with how do they be as effective as they can in what they're doing. The other thing I lean on to, and I've used this example before, but I just love sports and I love team sports. My whole life growing up, I always played team sports and I didn't care who my team was. Like, of course, you want to win and all that, but I want to play with fun people, not just great players who are jerks to everybody, right? And it's the same thing here. And I want when you do that, you get kind of an eclectic group all the time, and you leverage whatever strength they have in that moment on the court or on the field or whatever. I translate that to my work life of like I'm not going to force somebody to do something they hate and don't like, and it's just because I need it. Like I need that part of the business, right? If I'm looking for something I need to be pushed, as far as like our strategic, like push us forward strategically, I will probably be hiring towards that. And I will pose it to like the group of who I lead, like who wants to take this on, like who finds interest in that. And as I get to know them, I learn what they lean towards, what they're good at, and what they're probably not good at. I'm not going to force somebody to do something they're not good at and don't enjoy just because I need to get it done. Now there's limits with that. Like some things you just got to get done that stink and they're not fun, and that's every job, right? But you got kind of work together and you support each other through that. But I have somebody in my last job. This guy was phenomenal at building assessments and surveys and doing really deep statistical analysis. He hated dashboards, hated
That's
data
me.
management. And he probably built, yeah, and he probably built like one dashboard for me out of necessity the whole time he was there. And we had like a suite of like 12 dashboards or something, right? And he, even then, once he could, he offloaded onto our new BI person and they took it over. But everything else he did, man, he did it phenomenally. Like no one else could do it. So I wasn't going to lean on him for anything that I just needed to get done unless it absolutely had to. I leaned on him for the things he did really well and he enjoyed. And I tried to make sure to elevate his work. So that's not like, I mean, it's a journey. And I think as long as you and realize that when you're going into it, it's a journey and it's a hard one. And just be honest with yourself too, because some people take it on and they're leading and they're like, I really don't like this as much as I thought. And, I've seen a lot of folks take steps back into individual contributor roles because that's just what's right for them. For me, when I went into it, I didn't think I would like it, but I needed to grow my career in this function. So I was like, sure. And I love it. Like that's actually one of my favorite parts of the job is the leading people, helping them develop and then creating those relationships. Like that's actually really cool. So just be honest with yourself as you're going on because you owe it to yourself as well as to your team if you're really enjoying it or not. But good luck.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for asking that great question. Management is the thing that I have always sidestepped because it makes me so nervous. And I have, a lot of these questions too, and a lot of people in the chat have had similar experiences. Roll up through the chat, y'all, and if you want and just look at what other people are talking about. Kylie said she's also going to be a manager now. So congratulations, Kylie. Kylie's going to be on the data science lab with us very soon. She's going to be talking about our project workflows, which is really exciting. Get to see how somebody else puts together a project and their like folder structure and file structure. And I will be sharing my very messy ones too. And anybody who wants to chime in the chat and show us their messy folder structures or beautiful, pristine folder structures can do so too. All right, let's hop over to Slido and see what we've got on the slab here. Let me see. I saw a question about sports, and you had just mentioned sports, so I wanted to ask that one. But I also want to selfishly ask a tech stack question because I feel like we usually get that in by the halfway mark, and we totally didn't. Um, so, what tools do you use at GitLab? And like, is it, I know that you only have U2, R, Python, data storage, and also like, are you both the same programming person? Do you still code as
Yeah.
a manager now?
No, that's yeah, I am not as good at programming as he is in SQL. He's not as good at programming as I am in R. He never used R
Complement each
before he
other.
joined. Yeah, and he never used R before he joined. He's learned it out of necessity. We use R. Snowflake is where we house all of our data. And so Snowflake has the web UI where you can write SQL. We do a lot of it there. I've tried VS Code a couple of times, just it's too many tools. I'm like an R and I'll just write SQL when I need to. And we don't use Python, but at the company, a lot of folks use Python. For the developer side, everybody uses
Mm,
Python.
right, yeah.
And then we have our data science team that uses Python. They use Jupyter notebooks. Um, and then Tableau, like Tableau became our kind of BI tool for the organization. And then we also leverage, I'm not sure how many of you out there are familiar with the DBT to kind of keep our data model building set up and organized. So we're in there working on the source code to do that. And then we use GitLab to kind of manage all like um, the structure, the version control, everything we need to with that. I'm sure most people out there probably use GitHub, but we use GitLab obviously.
Because you are
Um,
GitLab.
yeah, and we use GitLab, and we leverage that for what we're doing. So those are kind of the main things we're doing from a technology standpoint in our
Okay,
platforms.
cool.
And in our handbook too, it's something I haven't mentioned yet either. We have a handbook that maybe I can link here in a bit, but we have
Yes,
a
if you don't,
handbook
I
you can.
will.
Oh, that'd be perfect. Yeah, but in the handbook, you can look up our data platforms and see like all the different tools in our tech stack that the company uses in the data side. They have like a whole really good list of DBT documentation and the way they use it and organize it. And it's out there in the public. It's open. And also you can find my people analytics page on there as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and that was just
Rachel
linked.
just put that in. Yeah.
Yeah, and there you can see kind of what we're working on, what we've done, we live. Because part of our other tech stack that's not like analytical is Workday is our HRIS system, so I have to understand Workday a bit and how to pull reports there. I don't do it often, but I have to. And then we use Culture for our surveying, and there's a data component to that as well.
Okay. I linked the handbook. Rachel linked the people analytics page. I wanted to shout out that GitLab is extremely open. Like open source as part of our ethos at Posit, GitLab is absolutely in that same vein. And I have utilized all kinds of stuff from the handbook for years, right? Because I mean, there are resources on compensation, on what these different like job titles are, what roles, what descriptions are for different roles. And like, there's so much that GitLab just openly talks about that. I mean, it's amazing. It's an amazing resource. Go look through it after this call for sure. Um, and then also you mentioned that you don't like VS Code. I hate VS Code too. Have you tried Positron?
Well, I was actually starting to toy around with Positron, and then the urgent things came up, so I don't get as much time as I used to tinker with tools. But
I
that's
feel
next on my
you.
list because I didn't have a problem with VS Code. It's like I don't need it. Like I just don't write
I
enough
feel you.
SQL, and I'm not like pushing commits, or I'm not doing any commits and then pushing changes to the base code, so I don't use it.
I would encourage anybody who has not played around with it, go play around with it. When I first started using VS Code, I was like, I just can't, I just couldn't get into it. Um, and Positron was a totally different story because it's built for the interactive type of like data analysis that I like to do. It's got a variable pane, it's got a plot pane, it's got a console there for me and my source. Like it's amazing. Okay, thank you so, so much. Let's see. we had the sports question I wanted to get in there still on my mind. It was, how do you think that this would work in the sports industry, especially for a soccer team? And I think that this is all about the HR questions and like the HR analytics function specifically. So maybe
Yeah.
just to throw a fun one in there.
Yeah, well, if whoever wrote this question wants to speak up, if you do
Yeah,
mean
it's
like
anonymous.
HR or if it's just like analyzing sports, I mean, there's a lot of carryover like between like what I do. I mean, if you're doing sports analytics, you're often trying to understand the value of a player, right? And that's typically what a lot of times you're trying to do when you're looking at like talent assessment things, like what's the value and impact of an individual. So we might use like um, network analysis, organizational network analysis to understand those nodes that are most critical and connecting folks. And we would have data sets to do that, but you might also have something similar to that, like on the basketball court or the soccer pitch. But just on a side note of that, I took an executive education in people analytics at Wharton 4, 5 years ago now. I can't remember. And one of the professors that ran that, his name is Cade Massey. It's Cade, and then Massey is Massey. And he's like all about sports analytics. So he actually had someone who ran the people or like the analytics function of oh, what's the team in Philadelphia? The Phillies baseball team. He came in and he was talking to us about how they analyzed all these different kind of sets of the data and what they look at and prioritize when they're recruiting a player, all kinds of things. And one of the coolest parts that I learned about him when he talked about this is you really got to measure the process, not the outcome. So there's challenges with every sport when it comes to that, right? In hockey, if you want to see how well they shoot, then you may just look, okay, how many shots did they take? And you want to measure, there's not a lot, right? There's not a lot of data. So you have to measure like maybe the quality of the shot they took, how many shots on target, where were they on the field, on the ice when they did it? When was it that they took it? Are they taking often, whatever. There's lots of different ways to kind of build the scenario of the process of that person who's taking the shot and then see, okay, are they following that process often? Like what's the closest person to them when they shoot? Where are they on the ice? Those matter better than if you're shooting from halfway and you're just kind of flinging it in, right? Same thing in basketball. Basketball for me is a little more relatable because I played it. Someone who jacks up a shot from the logo and makes it, but they make that shot 1 out of 10 times. That's not something you want to strategize around and defend. Now, if it's Steph Curry, maybe, but other people, maybe not. But if you know this person goes really hard off their left and they make their shots 80% of the time there, but they make it 40% on the right, then you're going to push them to their right hand, right? Those are things that they learn in sports through analytics of like just patterns. And you want to play the odds, you want to play the numbers, you want to follow the process that's going to help give you the best success. And that should be the same thing with work. Like it was really relevant to me when I did it because I was at HEB and we wanted to measure what are the processes with which somebody uses to manage a store. That should relate to every store. And we want to teach those processes to the managers so everybody's following these similar standard operating procedures that we know will most likely lead to success. In sales, it's the same thing. What are the standard like steps somebody takes who's like one of your highest or best salesperson? What are the steps and processes they follow through? Mimic that, learn it, expand it, and then we can measure. And it's like it may not work for everybody every time, but if you got to play the long game, and over time, it's going to work for you, right? And that's how these sports teams do it with their athletes. They're looking at. They're trying to understand how they impact the game based on their behaviors, not just outcomes. So I love it. Like sports analytics is kind of like my next, like if I could just switch into that world, like that'd be amazing. Like I love sports analytics. It's really cool. But I
I
would say let's go Spurs.
I was just gonna say, Adrian and I are in San Antonio from San Antonio, Los Spurs, like we basketball is our sport.
Yeah. And it's
I'm
easy to like
trash
them this year too. They're really, really good this year.
I'm trash talking, sports trash talking in the chat. David Dylan says, I only know them from the Tim Duncan slash David Robinson era. I also am old. So same. I feel like I don't know anything about the new Spurs. I know the old Spurs. Tim Duncan and I have the same birthday. Okay, fantastic question, whoever you were, anonymous asker. And I wanted to get in one that I saw about privacy because I think it's
Mm.
such a fantastic question when we are talking about data about human beings, especially HR data. It's an anonymous question that says, how do you manage to respect privacy of the data you work with? And that could
Yeah.
be a question about like the tools you use. How do you do data governance as well?
Yeah, I mean, so we have a data governance group at GitLab, but that director was just hired like a year ago. So we've had to manage this on our own. Like each functional group had to manage it on their own since I've been here up until recently. But even so, like every group's privacy, it's very different, right? So GitLab, we will have customer data there, and there's certain like privacies that legal gets involved in all the time to make sure, hey, we're not exposing anything. We're taking all the precautions we need to. We're making things anonymous where we have to, all that. And then there's on the people side, things that people might not even think are like sensitive pieces of information, but are absolutely sensitive. Maybe like even location, like the city somebody lives in, right? Like we're all over the world, and we don't necessarily need like if there's no need to know that information, we're not going to make it available to everybody in that has access to the database. So one thing that we wanted to make sure we did was we were the first group to ask for them to do dynamic masking. So when you get to Snowflake, you have a role assigned to you, right? And ours is like people analyst role or something like that. And it knows because of that, I can access these tables, I can't access these. And it also knows because of that, I can see these fields. And if I don't have that role, it's going to come out null for me. So we had to work to figure out, okay, how can we make this data as useful for us to be able to provide the things? If we do it in aggregate, it's not a problem. But if we show the individual levels of like birth date or um, I don't know, even sometimes email can be considered sensitive if it's just exposed. So
For
various
sure.
fields will have in there that we have to hide. We can see them, others can't. And if we aggregate those things into fields that are going to come in reports, it's no problem. But every time we're adding a new field, we go through that process, and we'll if it seems risky enough or it's really brand new, then if especially if it's a new data source, we have to include our privacy legal advisor to come in and look it over. The data team works with us to ensure that we're following their protocols, and then we have double checks to make sure that we're following our own special like protocols to mask what we need to. So if there's a new variable that needs to be masked, we'll add that in there even if it wasn't before, and we just remove it. So the highest, utmost priority is not exposing this. The other thing is limiting who can see it, like number wise. If even there are folks in HR that probably can go in and look at this stuff, they're not going to have access in the database to just go pull all this type of stuff. Probably never would access that anyway. But even if when I was planning to build my team bigger, we were going to have like, let's say an analyst that was working on talent acquisition data. They don't need to have all the HRIS data, right? They may not need to have birthday. They could have some aggregated version of a table, and that's good. So we'd have to build other roles where they could see everything in the ATS, but they can't see anything else in the HRIS, our management system. So paying a lot of attention to that and a lot of detail is super critical in this because these are people's lives, right? And this is their personal
Right.
information. And for a lot of different reasons of reporting, we may ask like identification on gender identification and ethnicity identification. And folks may not want that information out there for everything, but they're willing to provide it to you. We have to treat that with the utmost respect and care. That's generally my policy with any data, but I think with HR data, it's even more so. Plus, if you look at our handbook page, we try to be really transparent of what we have available and don't, so everybody knows.
Yeah.
And transparency is the other piece, right? Like, I'm not sharing with everybody, but I will share with you this is what I do have access to. So folks know and they're aware. So when they're providing something like their gender identification, it's not like in some box where they're like, I guess I have to. We're very clear with you do not have to. It's a voluntary thing. And if we're going to use it, we're using it for XYZ. So transparency is super critical to gain that trust. But I take that very seriously, and so do all of us in the data field here at GitLab.
Fantastic. And in that handbook, y'all go look through like their tools are mentioned, all kinds of stuff is really transparently mentioned. Okay, we have 9 minutes left, and there are no joke more than 20 questions in the Slido.
Oh,
Adrian, you have
cool.
drummed up more questions than I feel like I've seen in so long.
Oh, cool.
There's no way we're going to get to all of them, but if you would be up for a rapid fire round,
Let's do it.
I
I'll
would
try
love
and be as
that.
rapid as I can. As you can tell, I speak a lot. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Um,
I'd love to call in Madison next. Madison, if you want to ask your question live, you can start our rapid fire round off if you're still with us, Madison. Oh
Madison's
no.
unmuted, but maybe the microphone's not connected.
Okay,
But I could ask
that's
the
all right.
question.
Sure.
Madison's question was, have you done any work on skills analysis and or leveraging graph databases in your people analytics and data science work? Madison said, I work on a people analytics team as well, and I'm curious if there's any overlap in the way we're thinking about shared problems. And I'll
so I'm imagining the graph analysis might be like network graph analysis. but maybe you can, yeah. So maybe if you can clarify, Madison, but I haven't done too much with that. I wanted to. I think having access to the data is the critical thing there, like understanding who's in what meetings, who's chatting with who, and all that. And again, back to the sensitivity piece, like a lot of folks just don't feel comfortable with like anyone knowing and having that. But we've explored the idea of like a survey where you go out and you in the survey you're asking like name the people you work with most frequently in a week, right? Like the 5 people, name people you reach out to if you have a problem, whatever. In mass, you can get that and analyze and understand like, oh, so and so's reached out to a lot. And this person's reached out to by 5 different departments on a weekly basis for whatever, right? And that helps you understand I guess like that critical mass. And then the other question was skills. I've done a little bit of work with that. There's this thing called it's like a RIASEC model, and it's like an interest-based model that you can do. It's a psych thing, and the government has created this and they built it, and it's a way to kind of match your interests with skills, but or with jobs, and then you learn the skills that are matched there. And so what we did was we took that government piece and we kind of replicated that in an internal system and an internal form at HEB, because a lot of the people that worked at HEB again are hourly employees who are like students still and trying to figure out what they want to do with their life. And what we were able to do is kind of say, well, if your interests lean you towards this type of work, we have like these 10 different roles at HEB that really need those skills and so forth, so we could serve it up. So that was
Love
a
it.
really cool project that took a few years to kind of get going, but and a lot of different collaboration, but that was really cool.
Fantastic. Yeah. And speaking of government, Madison works at NASA. So, and
Oh,
Madison was also on my podcast. So if you want to go listen to Madison's episode of my podcast, Data Humans, I'll put that in the chat for you. Thank you for asking your fantastic question, Madison. I'm so sorry you couldn't unmute. All right, more rapid fire with 6 minutes left. Can we do it? There's a question that's anonymous. It says, is there a qualitative element to your analysis as well? For example, in addition to staff retention metrics, do you go further and find out why retention is the way it is? I might say this is a causal question.
yeah, especially with AI and the rise of AI and ChatGPT and Claude and like being more prolific, just kind of more prominent in like work, we're leveraging that a ton to understand like concepts that would just take way too long to analyze otherwise. Like we could do topic analysis and things of that sort before, but now I can literally tell like, give me the top 10 topics you're seeing about X, or what are the top most common topics you're seeing, and tell me how many times you're seeing that, and then give me excerpts. It can do it all super fast. So that's made it a lot more like I guess widely available to look at these qualitative things, both from exit interviews and like current engagement surveys. That's where you're going to get a lot of feedback from folks. And one thing I learned about the tech world is folks are not hesitant to give you feedback. So once you're, they're going to give you a whole ton, and that could be daunting at times because you'll have this long paragraph and it's got like 10 different points in there of what they like and
Wow.
don't like.
Yeah.
And the AI
Lots
helps
of
you break
latent
it apart
constructs.
super. Yeah, the AI helps you break it apart super easily.
Very cool. Okay. Fantastic question, anonymous asker. I will put, let's see. Whoa, can I read this as fast as possible? Let's see. I'm trying to, I'm sorry, I'm trying to read the questions as fast as I can so I can find something we can rapid fire. Is people analytics considered a subset of human factors, or is it the other way around? This is from Adam. Adam Taggart, I think.
I don't know. I can't say I know enough about human factors to say
Neither do
which
I.
one's a subset or the other. My wife was is an industrial engineer, and so maybe what she's taught me about like human factors, I guess they're related for sure. I don't know if I'd say one is a subset of the other, but I think they just have different ends in purpose, right? Like I think the human factors, from my understanding, and whoever asked this, if you can clarify, is really to help make sure you're doing a process properly. So Adam, is that you? Yeah, if you want
I
to
sent you a
clarify.
little thing to
There we
unmute.
go. Yeah, it was saying I couldn't unmute. I don't have
Oh,
long,
gotcha.
so yeah, it wasn't me trying to figure out if one had an umbrella over the other, or I was more trying to figure out if somebody with a human factors background like myself would feel more comfortable looking at people analytics, which is not a term that I've used before. Or this, like, what everything today has been so
Yeah.
new for me, and so I've been hearing things, and I was like, okay, well, I've got a bit of an insight into that and a bit of an insight into that. So I was really just, and I put that question at the very beginning, and you've answered a lot of questions that
Oh, great.
I had in
Okay.
mind. But it was really just to see if somebody with a human factors background and human factors for me has always been sort of cognitive processes and
Yeah.
reaction speeds, and so it applies to sports, and which is where I came from. So
Oh,
that's kind of where I thought this was going, and then it tended to verge more towards like team management, organizational behavior, and HR in the way. Have I got
Yeah.
understood that right in what you've been saying?
Yeah, and I think it could be used for both, right? Like if you get down to the nitty gritty and you have folks that you have the staff to do this and analyze the things you're doing, yeah, absolutely. I think human factors could play a big role in it, right? Um, so yeah, I do see there's a connection. I can see how different they are too, though, right? And I'd love to learn more about like what it is you do and what it is you're measuring in your work, because that sounds really cool.
yeah, we'll have to get you both on the Discord and we
Yeah,
can
no,
chat
that'd be
about it.
awesome, Adam. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll try to remember to reach out to you both afterwards. Okay, one more. Is it possible to break into people analytics with data experience but no HR experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
so. I mean, I never worked in HR before in my life. My wife had. I just knew HR as the once a year a talent assessment thing we do in the engagement survey. And then
Yeah.
I got the role because of my analytics background. And then I just kind of dove into it like, head first. So absolutely. I mean, if you find a role that needs somebody that does SQL, you find a role that's posted that somebody needs SQL and dashboarding and you know it, like go for it.
All right, fantastic. Well, Adrian, you have shared so much wisdom with us today. Do you think in the minute that we have left, you could leave us with a piece of career advice that has impacted you or that you like to give others?
Um, yeah, well, that's interesting. I was talking to my wife about it the other day, and we were talking about how we finished college and we just like kind of started doing life, right? And you just tackle the next thing that's in front of you. Like we got jobs and we got apartments, and then well, we needed more space, so we tried to find different jobs, and we're like, hey, I want to learn more. Went back to school, and before you know it, you got kids, a house, a mortgage, you got car payments, it's all like terrible things that you're kind of stressed about all the time. And I think what we've learned is like we took one thing we learned early in life and we're still applying the things that work and we've shed the things that don't work as we're going, like you kind of refine. And that's the way I've also approached my career. I've done all kinds of jobs. I've had terrible bosses. I've had fantastic bosses. I've had um, really, really demanding, like mentally jobs that will like they're just hard to do because like technically they're hard, and others that are maybe not my favorite because it's just like managing XYZ. It's pretty simple and straightforward, but you got to do a lot of it. And what I've learned is I just, even if it stinks and is terrible, I've learned something from it. I had one job where I was there for like a couple of months and it was really not a good fit. And I felt awful leaving because I was like, God, it's only been a couple of months. It's going to look horrible on my resume. And I was just ready to get out of there. And when I left, I realized how much I learned in those few months, even though it was awful, both about what I wanted for my future, what I didn't, what I could apply analytically, what I still needed to grow, all kinds of stuff, because it was just like drinking through a fire hose and it was miserable.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, I grew and I learned from it. And I think just taking every situation for what it is has been super helpful for me in my career because whether I realize it or not, like something I'm doing now will help me in the future, whether it's going to help me realize what I want to avoid or what I want to go to.
Oh, awesome. I agree. Learn what you don't want. It's super valuable. I've learned a lot of that. Well, Adrian, this was fantastic. Thank you for hanging out with us, sharing all of your wisdom. Everybody, it was so wonderful to see you. Don't forget to take the survey. And we will see you next week. We've got Mina Chetinkaya Rundell. Everyone loves Mina. She's going to be here with us next week. I cannot wait for you to chat with her. Professor of the practice at Duke and also professional educator here at Posit. You guys have a fantastic weekend. Adrian, you want to say goodbye?
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the questions and the attention. It was awesome being able to see everybody, and I'll hopefully be here next week or next hangout as well.
Yep, I'm going to get Adrian on Discord. All right, everybody, see you on Discord. Bye.